adjusted correctly. All right. We're going to get started. We do forward things because no flow, because we're not really going to be doing any vinyasas. So if you would like to add them in and you know what that is, you totally can. But if you are ready for a nice stretch, you're in the right place. If it's uncomfortable for you to sit on your knees, it might be nice to have a pillow or something underneath your butt. If you sit on your knees, you need a little extra lift. But other than that, should be good. Oh, good morning. All right. Well, let's get started. On our backs in Shavasana, like usual. Laying down, getting comfortable. Finding some stillness, laying down. Maybe tuning into your breath. Just noticing it before we change it. Just notice if anything feels tight, or if anything feels really good in your body. Just noticing if anything is calling for your attention. We're going to do a 3-part breath here. Inhaling to fill up the belly, expanding up, inhaling more into the chest, holding it at the top, filling up all the way to the collarbones, and then exhaling in reverse, exhaling through the chest, all the way down to the belly is the last thing. You can do this in and out through your nose. You can do it in through the nose or out through the mouth. But try to get the lengths of the inhales and the exhales to be the same. So sticking with this, inhaling, filling up the belly, filling up the chest, all the way up at the top, and then slowly in reverse release from the chest down to the belly. Sticking with that, inhaling into the belly, filling up through the chest, all the way up, and slowly exhale from the chest, down to the belly. Sticking with this breath if you would like. And then maybe noticing if your attention on your breath is focused, or if there's anything else swirling around in your mind. Just sticking with this breath, letting your attention settle there. And then as you're ready, maybe wiggling the fingers and the toes. Maybe reaching your arms up and overhead in line with your ears for a nice stretch here. And then slowly bring your knees into your chest, wrapping your arms around them. Or just palms on the knees, whatever you'd like. Hugging those knees into your chest, maybe rocking side to side. Maybe you're doing some circles on the ceiling with your knees. And then keeping your knees together and hugging in towards your chest. Bring your arms out to a T in line with your shoulders. Maybe bending at the elbows so that your forearms are in line with your face and your upper arms are reaching out from your shoulders. Bending at the elbows. And then letting both knees fall over, gently controlling it, drawing your belly button in to your belly, and let your knees fall over to the left. Gentle twist here. Seeing if you can keep both shoulders on the ground more than getting both knees to the ground. Maybe looking up at the sky, or maybe looking over at those right hand, right arm. And just taking a nice breath here. This passive twist. Let gravity do the work. You're not doing the work. Sticking with that big belly breathing if you can. And one more breath here. And if you want the work with the abdominals, you can bring your knees up through center without your hands, or if you want to guide your knees up with your hands, you can do so. Either way, bringing your knees back through center and hugging them in. Maybe rocking again side to side. Maybe noticing how the right and the left feel. The sides of your torso, if they feel any different after one twist on one side. And then bring your arms back out to a T, maybe bending at the elbows again. Maybe you have enough space to reach all the way out. Keeping those knees drawn to your chest, let them fall slowly until touching down on the ground. Trying to keep the shoulders both on the ground more so than the knees. Letting the knees fall where they may, as much as they want, over to the right. Maybe looking up at the sky, maybe looking over at those left fingertips. Just taking a few breaths here. Releasing the tension in your body so that gravity can do the work for you. Big belly breathing. Slow exhale. One more breath here. And then using your hands or engaging those abdominals, start to bring your knees back up through center. Go ahead and give them just one more little hug here. And then let the sole of the left foot plant on the ground in front of your hip, drawing the right knee in towards your chest, flexing the right foot. Start to draw that right ankle over the left thigh, coming into a figure 4 shape here. Letting that right knee fall away from your face. Flexing through the foot maybe. Staying here if this feels good. Or if you need more, threading your right hand through the hole in between your legs, that figure 4 shape, and wrapping the left hand around the outer edge of your left thigh, maybe interlacing your fingers behind your thigh or on top of your shin, whatever feels good. And just taking a few breaths here in this figure 4. Seeing if you can keep both shoulders on the ground. See if you can keep your hips, both hips, pressing into the ground. The backs of your hips. And just taking a few breaths here. Noticing where the stretch is, if it's in the outer hip, maybe the side of your butt. If you feel it a lot in your knee, just take it back. Take that left foot back to the ground. You shouldn't need too much of a stretch in the knee. Targeting the stretch here in the hips. And one more breath here. And releasing that left foot down to the ground. And start to reach that right knee up to the sky, uncrossing the right ankle over the left thigh, and then start reaching that right foot up to the ceiling, any amount, keeping a generous bend in the right knee. Maybe staying here and just reaching your right heel to the sky, flexing those toes back towards your face. Maybe interlacing your fingers behind your right thigh. Breathing here. You can even walk your hands up if you're feeling really naturally flexible this morning. But trying to keep those shoulders planted on the ground. And letting the stretch feel natural. So you're not straining anything else to get this stretch. You can keep your left foot where it is, or if you want to reach that left leg out long on the ground, you can stretch it out and let it lay on the ground. Maybe flexing through those left toes, both legs strong and engaged here. Taking one breath here. Go ahead and bend that right knee in towards your chest. Go ahead and bend and bring the left leg back in, hugging both knees into your chest. And then releasing the sole of the right foot onto the ground behind your hip. Planting it. Bringing that left knee in towards your chest, flexing through those left toes, crossing that left ankle over your right thigh, and then letting that left knee press away from your face. Figure 4 here, on the other side. If this is a good stretch here for you, stay here. If you need more, threading your left hand in between your thighs in that figure 4 hole, and your right hand wrapping around the outer edge of your right thigh, interlacing those fingers behind the thigh or on top of the shin. Flexing through those left toes as you hug this whole figure 4 shape in towards your chest, any amount. Flexing through those toes of the left foot and pressing the left knee away from your face as you hug it in. Finding that resistance, the stretch through the back of the hip, the outer edge of the hip, the side of the butt, wherever you feel it. Just taking a few breaths here, breathing into this space. And just one more breath here. And letting the sole of the right foot plant back onto the ground. Slowly releasing the left ankle from the top of the right leg, hugging that left knee in towards your chest before straightening that left leg up to the sky, any amount, reaching the left heel to the sky. Maybe your foot is forward, away from your face. Maybe it's stacked directly over that left hip. Wherever it is, reaching, actively reaching that left heel to the sky. Breathing here, or maybe interlacing your fingers behind your left thigh, keeping those shoulders on the ground. If you need to walk your hands up your leg, go for it. If you'd like to straighten out that right leg, go ahead and reach that right leg long along the mat, flexing your feet here, both engaging through both legs. And just taking one more breath here, reaching, engaging that left heel towards the sky. And slowly release that left knee in towards your chest, bringing the right knee in towards your chest. Just give it one more hug. And then rock and roll up and down your spine, or you can roll over to one side. We'll meet in a seated position. Maybe coming through a cross-legged position and coming to sit on your heels. Coming to your knees, maybe your knees and your feet are close together, maybe touching, and then sitting back on your heels. So this was the place that I was saying if you need a pillow to elevate the hips, it might feel nice. And if this is really comfortable for you, stay here without any props. Sitting tall here, maybe stacking your shoulders over your hips. Maybe taking a minute to notice what's going on with your lower back. And you can sort of arch your back and then tuck your tailbone and sort of find that place where you feel like you have a long spine, where the natural curves of your spine are supported, but they feel elongated, that there's no overarching or too much rounding here. Just finding that Goldilocks place in your spine and sitting up tall. Actively pressing your knees together slightly here, finding some stability. Keeping your hands on your lap or your knees, whatever's comfortable. Taking a big breath in, filling up through the belly, all the way up into the chest, and then slowly let it out in reverse from the chest down to the belly. And then reach your left fingertips over to the left. Maybe they touch the ground, maybe they hover. And then start to reach that right arm, sweep it out and up overhead so that your upper right arm is coming in line with that right ear. It can be more in front of your face. It doesn't have to be all the way back, but that's where you're reaching it towards. And then start to walk those left fingertips out to the left, keeping your hips stable where they are, side bending through your torso as you walk those left fingertips out, maybe bending the left elbow here to reach that right arm up and over, finding a nice lateral stretch through the side of your torso. Maybe looking up at those right fingertips, maybe reaching that right arm further back to the back of the room so that you can find some openness and broadness through the chest. Maybe releasing that left shoulder away from your ear. And taking a breath here. Maybe releasing your left ear to your left shoulder. Maybe bringing that right hand back down to hover over the ground by your right hip. And letting this become a neck stretch. Letting those left ears fall towards your left shoulder. Maybe looking down with your chin or looking up and playing around, finding that place where it feels best in the side of your neck. Taking one more breath here. And then letting your chin fall forward towards your chest as you come all the way back up through a long seat. And then reaching both arms out to the side, palms face up, and then up overhead towards each other. And then letting them come through center. You can bring your palms together through center if you'd like. We'll just do that a few times. Inhaling, arms out and up overhead. Exhaling, releasing your hands to your knees. Inhaling, arms up and out. And exhaling, hands to knees. Just a few more times like that. Inhaling up. Exhaling, hands down. One last time. Inhaling, arms up. And then exhaling, hands back. And we'll go right into the other side, letting those right fingertips come by your right hip. Fingertips maybe touch down on the ground. Reaching that left arm out and up in line with your ear. And then start walking those right fingertips over to the right, any amount. Once you've found that place, planting the palm and bending the elbow. Reaching that left arm up and overhead, maybe looking up at those left fingers and spinning your chest more towards the ceiling, the front of the room. Breathing here, releasing that right shoulder away from your ear. Finding a nice stretch through the side of your torso, letting your hips stay heavy on your heels. One more breath here. And then as you exhale, slowly let those left hands come down to hover by your left hip. And let that right ear release down to that right shoulder, any amount. Coming into that next stretch. Maybe letting your chin fall forward or up to the ceiling, finding that place where it feels good. One more breath here. Exhaling, letting your head hang heavy. And slowly letting your chin fall forward towards your chest. And we'll come all the way back up through seat. Making sure that you are facing the front of your mat now. And then planting your hands in line with your knees on the mat. We're going to slowly rise up into a forward fold. Planting those hands in line with your knees, start to bring your hips up, tucking those toes, and then slowly rolling those heels back towards the ground, finding a nice stretch along the feet, maybe along the ankles, walking your hands back towards your feet. As you start to straighten your legs, your hips to the sky, your head stays low. Coming into this nice forward fold, maybe walking your feet out to about hips width distance. Have a wider stance here. You can always keep your fingertips on the ground so you can bring your elbows to your knees. If you need a little support, keeping a generous bend in the knee. Or if you want to come into a ragdoll, letting the weight of your torso hang over your legs. Maybe interlacing your hands at the base of your spine, wrapping those elbows in towards your ears, and letting your arms hang, pull your head and your torso towards the ground. Wherever you are, finding any amount of straightness to the legs, actively pressing your heels, your balls of the feet into the ground, actively pressing your feet into the ground so that you can reach your hips up to the sky. One more breath here. And on your next inhale, start to reach your chest forward, your fingertips to the outer edges of your shins for that half lift, long spine. Your torso is parallel to the ground. Inhaling here. And then exhaling, fold, folding forward, belly to thigh. Inhaling for that half lift, expanding, filling up. And then exhaling, folding forward, releasing your head. Inhaling for that half lift. Exhaling, fold. One more, inhaling for that half lift. And as you finish that inhale, come all the way up to standing. Finding your Tadasana shape, strong and stable standing position. Your feet can be hips width distance, or you can walk your toes to touch your heels slightly apart. Whatever is a stable base, pressing into the feet, engaging through the legs, releasing your butt muscles slightly so that your hip bones can reach towards your low ribs, broadening across the chest, reaching your hand down to the ground, palms facing forward, letting your head hover over the rest of your spine. Taking one breath here. And slowly let it go. And then turn to the side of your mat. It doesn't matter which side. So that your toes are facing the long edge of your mat. And then step your feet out wide. Wider than hip width distance. Take a look at your feet and see if you can parallel your feet with one another so that they're in line with each other. Maybe your toes are facing forward the way that your face is facing. Bringing your hands to your hips, pressing your hips down with your hands, your chest up, slight bend in the knees. We're going to come into this wide-legged forward fold. Pressing your hips back and letting your chest come forward. For that half lift, hovering there, hands on your hips. And then exhaling, releasing your head and your torso down to the ground. Maybe bringing your hands to the ground underneath your face and finding that long spine. Maybe working on actively straightening the legs here, any amount. Keeping your hands underneath your face. Maybe bring your right hand to your right hip. Maybe start to turn your torso over to the right. You can keep your hips square, or you can let your hips come along for the ride, whatever feels best for your body. You can keep your hand on your hips, or you can reach it up to the sky, finding a nice twist here, maybe through the low back, maybe through the hips. One breath here. And then exhale, release that right hand down underneath your face. Resetting here, finding that long spine again. And then bringing those left hands to the left hip. Start to turn your torso over to the left. Maybe keeping your hips square or letting your hip come along for the ride. Keeping your hand on your hip, or start to straighten that arm, reach that left hand up to the sky. Breathing here, keeping along the spine. One more breath. And then exhale, both hands to the ground, under your face. Slight bend in the knees, hands to your hips, and slowly come all the way up to standing. Bring your feet together into the front of the mat. We'll just flow through a little version of a sun salutation. Inhaling to sweep your arms out and up overhead. Exhale, bend your knees to fold forward. Inhale for that half lift. And then as you exhale, step your feet back and down. And then come all the way down to your belly. And then propping yourself up onto your elbows. Elbows underneath shoulders here, coming into Sphinx. And breathing here. Pressing the tops of your feet in the ground, maybe looking back at your feet and seeing if you can reach them closer together. Pressing your elbows into the ground, maybe engaging your belly up and off the mat. Reaching your chest through your arms here. Taking one big breath. And then on your next exhale, slowly planting your hands, bending your knees, and pressing your hips up and back into a child's pose. Your knees can be together, or they can be apart. Your toes can touch, or they can be apart. Maybe reaching those arms forward so much that your elbows come off the ground. And then letting your head hang, maybe touching the ground. Taking one big breath here. And looking forward in between your hands and shifting your weight forward into a tabletop position. Maybe stacking your shoulders over your wrists, your hips over your knees, or finding any variation of that. Maybe fingers facing forward, maybe they're spinning out slightly. Finding some stability wherever you are, pressing into your hands, maybe pressing into the tops of the feet, or if it feels better, having those toes tucked. Finding a long spine, letting your head reach away from your tailbone. And we're just going to flow through a few regular cat-cows. Inhaling to reach your chest forward, your tailbone up, letting your belly start to hang down to the ground when you inhale. And then as you exhale, press your hands into the ground and round your back to the sky. Maybe tucking your chin towards your chest, squeezing out that air. We'll just flow through that at your own pace. Inhaling with your chest forward, belly down. Exhale, rounding your back to the sky, pressing, squeezing the air out. Inhaling forward, and exhaling, rounding. Just 2 more like that. Inhaling forward, and exhaling, rounding. Last one. Inhaling forward, exhaling, rounding. And then go ahead and bring your feet together back behind you, sitting your butt back to your heels, knees together, sitting back up in this Virasana pose, sitting back on your heels, and sitting up tall here for a moment. And then bringing your hands in line with your knees, start to pick your hips up off the ground, tucking those toes, and then shifting the weight back into the feet, rolling over those toes, pressing through the heels, getting a stretch through the calves maybe, as you press into your feet to straighten those legs any amount, keeping a generous bend so that the belly stays on the thighs in this forward fold. One more breath here. Exhaling, releasing. And then inhale, coming through that half lift, and all the way up to standing. Turning to face the side, the long edge of your mat, again, either side. And then reaching both feet out long for that wide-legged forward fold again, having that wide stance, feet parallel with one another. Pressing your hips down to the ground, your chest forward and up. And then bending the knees slightly here, hinging at the hips to fold forward. Bringing your hands underneath your face maybe, finding a long spine, straightening the legs any amount here. And then maybe walking your hands back in line with your feet. Maybe staying that half lift or folding forward. Walking those hands back in line with your feet, bending at the elbows, using your hands to press yourself any amount into this fold. Taking one big breath here, letting it go. And then inhale, start to walk your hands back underneath your face. Bringing your hands to your hips and coming all the way up to standing. Go ahead and turn those right toes open to the right with your whole leg. So you can pop up onto those toes with the heels, and then turn that entire leg out to the right. Keeping your hands on your hips here, both legs strong and straight. Slight bend through this front right knee here. Finding engagement through the quad and the calf. Bringing your hands to your hips and then shifting your hips back to the left towards this left back hip away from this front right leg. And then start to shift your torso over to the side any amount. You can stay here, or if you want more in triangle, pressing through the big toe mound, reaching that right arm out, and then down. Maybe the back of the hand presses into the shin. Maybe that left arm reaches up to the sky, finding a long spine here. Breathing wherever you are. One full, expansive inhale. Slowly let it go. And bring both hands to your hips and slowly come back up through standing. We'll just go right into the other side. So picking up those right toes, turning that right foot in so that your feet are parallel again. And then maybe picking up the left heel and then turning the entire left leg open to the left. Knee and toes pointed towards the short edge, the back of your mat, the front of your mat, the short edge of your mat. Hands on your hips, finding some strong legs here, engaging through your legs, drawing your left heel in towards your right arch without moving your feet. The action of drawing your feet in towards one another, pressing through that front left big toe mound. Hands on your hips here, long spine, shifting the right hip back towards that right foot, coming over the left leg, any amount, staying here. Or if you need more, reaching that left arm out and down, maybe the back of your hand presses into the shin, and then maybe reaching that right arm up to the sky. Finding your version of a triangle pose, and just breathing here. And slowly on your next inhale, bringing both hands to your hips, and then coming all the way back up through standing. Excuse me. Leg in to face the front. And then bring both feet to the front of the mat, facing forward. Standing tall, hands on your hips still. And then just take a natural step back with your left foot. It could be short, it could be long, it could be wide, it could be narrow. Just taking a step back. Keeping your hands on your hips and pressing through both feet, engaging through your legs so much that you can draw your right hip back in line with your left. Pressing through the front right big toe mound. And then starting to hinge at your hips, any amount. Trying to find some length through your legs. You can always bend if you need to, but finding any amount of fold over that front right leg. Keeping a long spine here, hands on your hips. If you can bring your hands down to the ground, and that's easy for you to have a long spine, that's also great. But if it compromises the length through your spine, keep your hands on your hips. And ease yourself into that fold. Using the muscles here to stabilize the stretch. One more breath here. And then maybe let yourself round over that right leg. Releasing that work. Then inhaling all the way back up to standing. Bringing that left leg to meet the right. Pressing into your feet, hands on your hips. Finding that strong Tadasana pose. And then we'll just take a natural step back with the right foot. Whatever that looks like. Pressing into both feet. The more narrow your stance, the more muscle engagement you need. General rule of thumb. So if you're in a more flexible body, maybe having a more narrow stance will make it more stable. Pressing both feet into the ground so much that you can maybe draw that front left hip back in line with the back right. Pressing your hands into your hips, drawing your chest forward, your spine long, slight bend in the knees so that there's no hyperextension, but long and strong legs as you start to hinge from your hips, keeping a long spine, hinging forward over that left leg, any amount. Keeping your hands on your hips here, finding a long spine. If you can reach your hands to the ground and have a long spine, feel free. Or keeping your hands on your hips, keeping that length through the spine, breathing here. Drawing that left hip up and back. One more breath here. And then go ahead and round over that left leg, maybe bringing your hands down to the mat now. Rounding over it, releasing all of that work. And then inhale your chest up, hands to your hips. Come on, ramp to standing with a long spine. And bring your feet together, or hips with distance. If you would like to flow through a vinyasa, you can flow with me if you're craving it. Or if you are not feeling that energy, you can just take a seat cross-legged on the mat. So taking a seat on the mat, or inhaling arms out and up overhead. Exhale, folding forward, bend the knees. Inhaling, half lift, fingertips to shins. Exhaling, stepping back to plank, knees up or down. Flowing through your version, knees up or down to the bottom of a push-up. Elbows draw in towards one another. Shifting over the tops of your feet. Coming into Sphinx or upward facing dog with just your hands on your feet pressing into the ground. And then exhaling, pressing up and back into your downward facing dog. Breathing in your downward facing dog for just a moment. You're enjoying the seat, cross-legged on the mat. If you're in your downward facing dog, we're going to come into a cross-legged position. You can drop the knees and shift your hips to the side, or if you want to play around, jumping through your hands. Walking your hands back slightly, bending through the knees, looking forward, reaching your chest forward, and as you exhale, hop the feet up and through your hands into a seat. If you want to play around. Sitting up tall in your cross-legged position, crossing with the ankles or the shins. And then bringing the soles of your feet together. We're coming into Baddha Konasana or butterfly pose. Soles of the feet together, drawing those heels in towards your crotch, any amount. Bringing your hands maybe to your ankles as you sit up tall. Finding some length through your spine. And then maybe folding over those feet any amount. Finding length through your spine here. Maybe interlacing your fingers together and wrapping that around your toes. Pressing your toes and your feet into one another as you fold over here, any amount. Breathing. Keeping a long spine here for one more breath. And then exhale, round over into this fold, releasing the work. letting your head hang. One more breath here. And slowly coming up through seated. We're going to take a wide-legged forward fold on the mat. So go ahead and reach your legs long and out to the sides of your mat, maybe the corners of your mat. You can have as wide or as narrow a stance as you need for your body. So you can have a very narrow stance or a very wide stance. Finding that place where you can have your knees and your feet pointing up to the sky. And then once you're there, finding some length through your torso, maybe hands on your legs. Finding some length through the torso, shoulders over hips. And then bring your hands to the mat in between your legs. And then maybe slowly folding forward as you walk your hands out in front of your chest, keeping the legs engaged and flexed here, keeping a long spine, and just slowly walking yourself forward any amount. Breathing here. This can be a bit of an intense stretch, so be slow with yourself. Breathing here. And then maybe releasing that long straight back. Go ahead and round into it, any amount. Breathing here, keeping your feet pressing up towards the sky. And then slowly walking your hands back towards your legs, sitting up tall. Bringing your feet together, helping your knees with your hands as it comes together. Maybe spinning to face the front of your mat again. And then start hugging your knees in towards your chest. And maybe rolling down slowly onto your spine. And then just rock and roll up and down or side to side. Just finding that place that feels good. We'll come into a happy baby pose. So drawing those knees in towards your shoulders, bring both hands on the insides of your thighs, and then draw your hands towards your feet. And grab the outer edges of your feet. Reaching the soles of the feet to the sky, drawing that tailbone down to the ground so that your hips, the backs of your hips can stay pressing into the mat. Breathing here, heels to the sky, knees as wide or as narrow as you'd like. You can maybe pull down on one foot and then the other swaying side to side. Swaying side to side, you can start straightening one leg and then the other if you'd like. And then coming back through stillness, drawing both knees together, in towards your chest. And then planting the soles of your feet down onto the ground, behind your hips. we're just going to take one easy bridge pose to get a nice stretch through the frontal hips and thighs. So planting your feet on the ground in front of your hips, pressing your feet into the ground and start to pick your hips up off the mat, pressing your hips forward up to the sky any amount, and pressing your hands and your arms into the ground, maybe rolling your shoulders underneath you slightly, pressing your hands into the ground, pressing your hips up to the sky, drawing those knees together towards one another so that your legs stay parallel with each other. Taking one big breath here. And then slowly exhale, release your hips back down to the ground. And just windshield wiper your legs, let your knees fall over to the right and then the left. And then reaching your legs along the mat, coming back into this Shavasana corpse pose here. Maybe drawing your hands and feet away from your body, wider here. Maybe closing your eyes. Releasing the control over your breath, letting your breath come naturally. Releasing the muscles around your eyes and your cheeks. Unclenching your jaw, letting your tongue fall to the bottom of your mouth. Just noticing where your mind is going. Noticing how your body feels. If there's anything that is still calling for attention from discomfort or from ease, if it feels really good or not, just noticing. Maybe closing the eyes and noticing if you hear any sounds, if you smell anything. Maybe acknowledging the space that you created to do some yoga. And acknowledging this virtual space that makes it possible. And then maybe acknowledging yourself for showing up for yourself. Just taking a few moments of stillness for yourself. Maybe starting to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Maybe rolling through the wrists and the ankles. Maybe reaching your arms up and overhead for a long stretch from your fingertips to your toe tips. And then maybe hugging your knees in towards your chest. Maybe rock and roll up to a seat or roll over to one side, your favorite side, and pressing yourself up into a seated position. If it's comfortable to sit cross-legged, crossing at the shins or the ankles, sitting up tall here, maybe your hands at your knees, shoulders over hips, sitting up tall. Maybe closing the eyes for a moment. And bringing your hands together, palms together, and pressing them in towards one another. The light in me honors and loves the light in you. Or namaste. Oh, thank you for tuning in. Tuesday mornings are so fun. Trying out all sorts of things. As usual, these are donation-based. Namaste. So if you'd like to donate via Venmo at FWeezer, 50% of those donations go to a different charity each week, and 10% goes to the Buckeye Tree Lodge for this awesome space, and the rest goes towards my yoga education, so I can teach you better. I'll post it in the description below. And other than that, have a great day.